Hey everybody, Captain B-Nard here with your BHDL3 Week 3 recap and Week 4 preview. So, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into this by taking a closer look at our opponent for the week. And that, of course, was the Piercing Poniards, coached by De Best Not Really. Now, this is an individual who we have faced twice before here, actually once each in the BHDL1 and BHDL2 Draft League tournaments. And so on the screen right now is a snapshot of his team this season. And so looking at this roster top to bottom, it is very strong and well rounded. But the Pokemon that I was expecting him to bring 100% were the Roaring Moon, the Tinkaton, the Landorus Therian, and the Amoonguss. So I was 100% sure he was going to bring all of those Pokemon to this game just because they all seem good into my team. All powerhouses in their own right. Now, for the last two slots on the team, I was a little bit torn for a lot of other Pokemon, actually. So I thought there was a decent chance that he was going to bring some combination of the Necrozma, the Hisuian Zoroark, the Jolteon, and the Poliwrath. So I was thinking he was going to bring perhaps two of those four Pokemon to this game, depending, on which ones matched up well with each other. And so, additionally, I was also not expecting him at all to bring either the Altaria or the Sneasel, as neither of them seemed to have a particularly good match into my team. So yeah, that's just kind of what I was expecting out of this game. So having said that, we're going to throw it over to the team preview screen and see what he actually decided to bring. So here you can see the six Pokemon that he brought to the game on the right-hand side of the screen, the six Pokemon I brought on the left. And so as you can see, this week he decided to bring the Necrozma, the Landorus Therian, of course, the Tinkaton, the Amoonguss, the Altaria, and the Roaring Moon. So, I was pretty surprised to see the Altaria. I know I said this at the time, but I will say it again. Um, I was pretty surprised to see the Altaria. I didn't think he would bring it, but he did bring it. Um, so yeah, I'm guessing the reason he brought it was that I believe it's his only way to remove hazards on this team, and he was probably fearing some hazard stacking on my side. Although ironically, I don't think I brought a single hazard setter this week. But yeah, other than that, pretty much what I expected. So looking at the Pokemon that I brought this week, you can see I decided to bring Arcanine, Scissor, Rotom Wash, Goodra, Alolan Ninetales, and the Sneasler. So, once again, these were just the Pokemon that I thought had the best matchup into his team and kind of coordinated with the strategy that I had dreamed up to try and take him on. So, but yeah, having said that, we're going to go ahead and keep on rolling by taking a look at how the game actually went. And so here you can see we did end up winning this game 5-0. It was one hell of a game, I will say. If you haven't seen the game yet, which I assume everyone who's watching this has, but if you haven't, I highly recommend going and watching that game. It was an absolute war of attrition of a game, lasted well over 40 minutes. Certainly didn't feel like a 5-0 victory, but I will take it. It is a much appreciated and much welcome 5-0 victory for us. An extremely hard fought and competitive affair. Lots of grinding, lots of jockeying for position, just an absolute clinic on both sides here. But since we did win the game, I'll go ahead and name the game MVP here. And this was actually a very difficult decision for me this week because a lot of the Pokemon this week put in a lot of work in this game. I feel like this was one of those games where we only won because everything came into place and every Pokemon did their part to try and achieve the victory. So I think without any one of those pieces of the puzzle, we could have had a very different outcome for this game. However, I will say that I think all things considered, I would have to give the game MVP this week to Goodra. And the reason for that is that we were kind of on the back foot toward the beginning to the middle of this game, and we were actually down a Pokemon. Early in the game, actually lost. We were the first team to lose a Pokemon, and so a big turning point in this game was when we took the lead Pokemon wise for the first time, and that was courtesy of Gudra, as we had a pretty incredible sequence of back-to-back turns where my opponent switched in the Tinkaton on the Gudra. As we predicted that switch, we go for the Flamethrower to finish the Tinkaton off, which knocked my opponent down to, I believe, 4 Pokemon. Then he comes in with the Roaring Moon to try and revenge kill the Gudra, but we are packing the Terra Fairy this week, so we go ahead and go Terra Fairy on the Gudra, end up gaining the immunity to the Dragon Claw he does go for, and then we take him out with a Draco Meteor on the other side. So that sequence of events right there, I think, was the probably the biggest turning point of this game. Although there were several other turning points that I am going to mention in the next slide, but that was probably, if I had to say the biggest turning point in the game, it was those two back-to-back turns there. It was the first time that we got the lead in the game Pokemon wise, and it was a huge momentum swing that kind of started the snowball rolling down the hill in our favor, and ultimately led to us picking up the win. So but having said that, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our key takeaways from the week. And so, of course, our key takeaways of the week here on the screen we have. First one I will note is I thought that this was a pretty even match on paper. So if you look at my roster top to bottom versus my opponent's roster top to bottom, seems to be a very even matchup. We both have premier high point value threats. We both have offensive and defensive powerhouses. And yeah, it just seems like a relatively even game on paper, in my opinion. But other takeaways for the week here, I will say I felt like I prepped well and played well once again for this game. So I was concerned about quite a few Pokemon on his team, um, specifically the Necrozma, believe it or not, and the Landorus. Those were two huge considerations of mine that I thought could be problematic. But his roster was very solid top to bottom, so most of the Pokemon I did have my concerns about. But so as a result, I did prepare very hard for this game, and particular points of prep that I were proud of. Number one, I would have to say, would be the Ninetales set. And this kind of comes into another key turning point of the game here, because um, somewhere along the way, I want to say early to middle of the game, we had a situation where my opponent had the Necrozma in, and he was setting up with the Necrozma Calm Minds. He had healing as well, and obviously the attacking moves for super effective damage on much of my team. And so this week I decided to bring Encore on the Ninetales, I should say, and that really ended up saving me, because I was able to come in with the Ninetales on the Necrozma as he went for the Morning Sun, which did gain him some HP, although not as much because it was snowing. But that did safely allow me to Encore him into the Morning Sun on the next turn, which meant that the Necrozma was forced to switch out, and that allowed me to get a free Aurora Veil up. So that was a huge thing for me, averting a huge potential catastrophe with the Necrozma, because we really didn't have a ton to answer the Necrozma this week. Like I said, I thought it was a Pokemon he might bring. I wasn't confident for 100% he would bring it, but it was a huge concern of mine, because that thing, once it gets going, is just really hard to stop. Um, but yeah, I was pretty proud of the Ninetales set. I was also pretty proud of the Gudra set this week. It wasn't anything crazy or fancy, but the sub Gudra allowed me to really chip the Tinkaton down in the early goings of the game. And even though it ended up recovering quite a bit with leftovers, we got a lot of valuable chip with the Gudra, and we got valuable information about scouting sets for that and the Necrozma. So the Gudra set with the sub was definitely pretty clutch for us this week as well. I think we played this game pretty well, I will say. There were a lot of huge turning points in the game, I think, that swung in our favor, and it was very difficult to navigate the plays, but a couple of them would include. Um, I would say early to middle of the game once again, where we have a situation where I came in with the Alolan Ninetales versus my opponent's Amoonguss, and so ended up actually being our first kill of the match because I ended up making the obvious play and going for the Blizzard, which my opponent actually over predicted and stayed in, thinking I would just Aurora Veil, which I had done, I believe, the first time or two that I was in with Ninetales. So we were able to catch him and take the Amoonguss out and get our first kill of the game. So that was pretty big for us. We already mentioned the Ninetales Encore moment. We already mentioned the moment with, of course, the Goodra with the back-to-back kills. That was a huge moment as well. So there was just so many, big moments in this game, and just like I said, there was so much struggling for position in this game, and it was just such an absolute grind. Um, but later in the game, there was another relatively pivotal moment, late game, I want to say, where once again we kind of catch him with a little bit of over prediction as we had our scissor in against the Necrozma, and so we stayed in as he actually went for the Psyshock, predicting the switch. So we tank the Psyshock with the Scissor and get a knockoff on the Necrozma, which leaves it within bullet punch range on the next turn, as well as gets rid of its item. So that was a pretty big turn for us as well. So it was, like I said, it was just an absolute grind, and there was a lot of work to be done. But I think all in all, we played the game pretty well this week, which is, of course, great. But other takeaways, I would say, there were even but minimal hacks in this game. So there honestly, especially for how long this game was, there really weren't all that many hacks in this game. I think there was a crit here or there, but for the most part, there was virtually nothing in this game. I think there was maybe like a crit on one on each side, and maybe I want to say a couple other things. There were no like I don't believe there were any accuracy misses or anything like that. So there were a couple little things, but nothing that really swung the game in any serious way, in any serious direction, which was, of course, great, especially, like I said, given how long the game was. Then the last thing I would say about this, once again, is this was a very important game for momentum. So um, obviously with that big 5-0 victory, that is very, very huge for us moving forward with the season, just trying to maintain our momentum. Like I said, just trying to uh, put our heads down and do the work to get back to where we want to be, get back to the promised land here in the Battle Hub Draft League. And so the momentum, obviously, out of the game is really key, really important for us. So but that's going to go ahead and bring us into our next week's game, which is week 4, of course. And we have a little bit of an interesting situation on our hands for this game here, actually. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we are going up against the face of pure evil himself, a vile fiend of boundless evil, in fact, that, of course, you all know has to be Heel Emerald Miner. There he is on the screen. Look at that sinister grin on his face. Um, just absolutely horrible, despicable human being. No, I'm just kidding. it's all just one big joke, folks. So inside jokes from the Battle Hub Draft League right here. But this is our opponent for next week. Of course, Emerald Miner, and we're gonna go ahead and take a look at a snapshot of his team there, the Demolition Force, obviously. We, of course, are no strangers to Emerald Miner as well. This, I believe, will be our 4th encounter here on Scarlet and Violet. So we've battled 3 prior times. 2 of those battles were in the BHDL's Seasons 1 and 2, and we also had a free game quite some time ago as well. So once again, this is a snapshot of his roster this season. Obviously, a very solid roster top to bottom. A lot of power on there, a lot of utility on there. Um, Definitely going to be a very solid team to try and crack here. But once again, we're just gonna kind of hopefully do the work here and do our best, and hopefully we can make it happen here um, against Emerald Miner. So, but that's gonna be it for this one. Thanks for watching again, everyone. Hope you all enjoyed. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, and/or subscribe if you did enjoy, and stay tuned for more new videos in the future. So that's it, and we'll see you next time.